Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm En Fuego here, and I welcome you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for a special Rapido Fuego review. I wasn't originally going to review this, but it's hit on Netflix after originally being broadcast on ESPN, and there's even more people talking about it because just like has happened with Hannibal and that David Koresh miniseries, I mean, all the time something has its initial broadcast and it gets a decent clamor of attention, but then it shows up on Netflix and then it just really takes the fug off. And not that this didn't get a lot of attention when it was initially being broadcast, and it had both a TV-14 version and then the full-on TVMA, uncensored, all the foul language of competitive sports players you can imagine. And I'm talking about The Last Dance, the 10-part just chronicle of Michael Jordan's career with the Bulls. And just to give you a little bit of context here, I was one of those kids who, grew up in the age of, like Mike. Sometimes I dream that he is me, and those, those Gatorade commercials and all that stuff. I mean, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And it's funny because, here in Phoenix, with my little sons and stuff, when they were playing at the Madhouse on McDowell before moving to downtown Phoenix and stuff and getting that new arena and Charles Barkley showing up and all that other stuff in the 92-93 season, Jeff Hornacek was my guy, and then he got traded for Barkley, and it was around that time that I was just really discovering who Michael Jordan was. And I remember distinctively the 92 NBA Finals against the Blazers and the whole how am I making all these three-pointers game. I remember that oh so distinctively, even more so than the hand switch against the Lake Show in 91 and stuff, and then obviously against the Suns in 93 and the heartbreak that was that, although ironically enough I was cheering for the Bulls in that series. My hometown hated me so very much, but I mean, I still have my Jordan basketball cards from back when I was a kid. Yeah, I still have those, man. I mean, yeah, I don't think they're worth anything because in this period of sports in the late 80s and 90s and stuff, the card people like Upper Deck and NBA Hoops and all those different peeps, they basically were flooding the market with cards. Same thing happened with comic books around this time. And so, yeah, not really worth very much last time I looked, but I still am happy that I have them, and they're all in nice condition too. And then I remember when Jordan turned 50 a few years ago. Yeah, this is an awesome special that Sports Illustrated put together. But these things aside, okay, The Last Dance is incredibly compelling in the fact that there's lots of time jumping that transpires throughout this. I love how just unfiltered it is as far as the language and the resentments and the rivalries and all that other stuff, both amongst players on the team and, certain opponents, Pistons. But yeah, man, it's some legitimately compelling stuff. And I've even talked to some sports friends of mine who aren't even into basketball. Hell, I've talked to friends that aren't even into sports, period, that have watched this or at least started to, and they're like, that's some riveting stuff, man. And that's because it most definitely is. And in 10 parts, you chronicle all of the intricacies of Jordan back when he was a kid in North Carolina and, going to college and becoming such a sensation there, sticking around a little bit longer than a lot of kids that go to the NBA in this day and age do. I mean, imagine how much better of a player LeBron James might have been had he just been through, and Kobe as well. Arguably the two best after Jordan. Jordan is still the best ever, and I will always contend that, and I know there's a lot of younger peeps who disagree, but imagine how much better a Kobe or a LeBron could have been if they studied the team game aspect a little bit more in college, went there for 2-3 years, whatever. I think or even 1 year, for God's sake, You never know. Maybe they could be better players than Jordan, but I will always argue that he is the greatest of all time, Air Jordan, man. But yeah, I mean, so you see Jordan now, but yet you also have this film crew that followed them around during what was just very unanimously and outspokenly going to be the final year of this dynasty, and all of the pressure to win, a second straight three-peat and everything. And so a film crew followed them around way back in that 98 season when they went on to play the Jazz again for the second straight year and win, obviously, because, I mean, Jordan, Phil Jackson, Pippen, that trio and what they were able to do. And there were different supporting players in the first, three-peat compared to the second three-peat. And we get all of these facets, some interviews with some of those role players, not as many as I would have liked, but, I mean, we have an entire episode that focuses on Pippen and the fact that his stats were insane and yet his pay was ridiculously low, and he was essentially the Rodney Dangerfield, all good, no respect. And it led to contentiousness during that 98 season. And, obviously the addition of Tony Kukoc in the second three-peat. And, I mean, that's another card that I have in here, guys. I was looking through this. I haven't looked at these cards in years and years and years. And I still have my Dream Team card. See right there? Let's get focused properly. Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, the fact that I still have this stuff, I dug it out when I was watching the initial broadcast. But yeah, the fact that that was the initial, he was called the European Jordan, and Pippen and Jordan are like, hell to the no, we are going to show this guy what's up. And then he ends up on their team, and then all of the drama of Jordan, not of Jordan, well, Jordan had all of his own drama, the gambling, and I mean, leaving for baseball, and the horrible tragedy of his father being murdered. And but I was going to say, we have an episode about Rodman too. I think it was the third or the fourth one, and you get some interviews from Carmen Electra, who was running around with Rodman at the time. And I mean, there was just so much both on the court and off the court about this dynasty that is so incredibly fascinating. And like we talk about the comeback and number 45, and just not being quite good enough to get past that. I think it was the Shaq and Horace Grant and the Magic that knocked them out when Jordan came back out of retirement after a year and a half. And so there's so many intriguing subplots, and we also, like with Jordan getting drafted and the fact that it jumps between the multiple timelines. So we have the current interviews, and then of all the players looking back and seeing vintage interviews and some game footage and things of that nature. They talked to Pippen, they talked to Rodman, Jordan, and many others. As I said, Steve Kerr, man, the stuff with Steve Kerr's father too. My God, you get some John Paxson in there, who was essentially the Steve Kerr of the first three-peat, and I mean, I think we get some B.J. Armstrong in there as well. That's the thing. This is 10 parts, man, and each is about an hour, so it is comprehensive and sprawling, and yes, certain episodes will bleed together, but it is so binge-worthy in that regard. And I mean, you've got the current outlook, you've got the look back at the 98 season, and then you have just the chronicling of the history and Jordan, and his amazing numbers he was putting up as a younger player, and Collins coaching and getting so much out of him, and that change, and Collins in a lot of ways being like the Mark Jackson, the way Mark Jackson was to, in my estimation, like Golden State, and then Kerr comes in and he's got so much of the groundwork already done for him, and he just strolls in and starts winning titles. I've made that connotation a lot as a big time basketball fan. Yeah, I'm a rocker and I'm a horror YouTuber, but I love shooty hoops, man, to quote South Park, and that it's in no way being derogatory. And just the evolution of Jordan and the way it's chronicled in this, and just squeezing them into the playoffs early on, and the respect that he gained from Jordan and from Magic, the respect that Jordan gained from Magic and Bird, and yet obviously never did from Isaiah Thomas, and the no shaking of hands when they finally got eliminated after winning those 2 straight titles, those bad boy Pistons, man. That's a 30 for 30 that y'all need to check out, because that is some super compelling stuff. And basketball was definitely not the game of finesse like it is now. I mean, those were some the old mentality of just no layups, knock them on their ass kind of mentality. I mean, it's a different game back then. It was much more brute force. I think players in a lot of ways are far more skilled now. They're better shooters, but dare I say they're nowhere near as tough, man. So that's something that's arguable. But yeah, that Pistons rivalry was something else, man. And just hearing a few of the people talk about that, most notably Isaiah and Jordan laughing when he sees the explanation for not shaking hands and stuff. I mean, there is gold throughout. And even if you're not a big Bulls fan, and if you were like a New York Knicks fan, for instance, it will take you back to the glory days of that team with like Ewing and Starks and Xavier McDaniel. And I mean, yeah, man, this is just, if you were a fan of basketball in the 90s, as I was, and then I took a few years off, and then I got back into it when my Run and Gun Sons with Dan Toney started doing it, Stat and Matrix and old Stevie Nash and whatnot. But I mean, bottom line, my favorite, I look back so fondly at that time with this Jordan dynasty, because even if I still think that even if you were somebody who played against him, you still respected his level of skill immensely. And he wasn't as polarizing of a person as like a Kobe Bryant was, you know? Kobe with the chip on his shoulder, and really, I mean, that's the thing. There's not as many people throughout the league who loved Kobe, rest peacefully, I think, as people love Jordan, you know? And Kobe really liked playing the bad guy, you know? And I still contend Kobe was a better player, you know, once again, like, rest peacefully, man. Better player than LeBron. I don't know. This argument could go on for days and days and days, but I mean, for me, Jordan, the fact that he was in stuff like Space Jam, and the fact that, I mean, I don't know. There was a different sense of being beloved in comparison, even though he was just such a ferociously fierce competitor. And there's some people who have said that you kind of perceive Jordan as being a bit of an asshole in this. I don't necessarily think so. He just seems like somebody who didn't take any shit, and really, I mean, it was almost like a tough love to get the competitive juices going. But once again, it's all interpretive, and I think fans of some of those other franchises, like if you're a Knicks fan or if you're like a Pistons fan or something like that, you may see things a little bit differently. If you're a Boston fan, whatever. But this is such compelling stuff, and yeah. 10 episodes, y'all, The Last Dance. And the reason I was doing this today, normally Wednesdays on my channel, when I do throw something up, it's something comic book related or occasionally Star Wars related. But yeah, the basketball season in a bubble in Orlando is officially starting tomorrow with a doubleheader. And then Friday, my Suns return to the court, and then tons of other teams do. 22 teams of the 30 that are going to be playing it out for playoff spots. And we're just going to see where it all goes from there. It's been a weird summer, it's been a weird year, but yeah, I think The Last Dance most definitely has captivated far more than just basketball fans and sports fans in general. So, I've been Jaime En Fuego. I'm going to find them all on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubies. Like, share, subscribe. Oh, does it mean so very much to me, greatly appreciated. I don't really cover a lot of sports stuff on here, but I do geek out with my Star Wars stuff and things of that nature, you know, sci-fi, but also comedy, and all the way around the spectrum to like art house cinema, smaller dramas, things of that nature. But if you like spectacular, scarific stuff, jump on over to my main channel, which we're about to cross 34,000 subscribers. Yeah, it's a drastic difference between my little channel over here that I started separately just as an outlet for other things, but youtube.com/The Horror Show channel is where all that stuff is. Reviews of everything from movies to television to comics. I do a weekly Stephen King show every Saturday, as well as myself, Cecil, Marsha, Robert, and Susie do trailer reactions, unboxings, video game let's plays, you name it. Tons of rad status stuff. So, I've been Fuego. Y'all have been awesome. And until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sen amigos, constant readers and viewers alike. Say thank you for your time today, and I'm hopeful we share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, stay home and, yeah, watch some basketball. We've missed it.